everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Steph. Today we're going to be chatting about Victorian romance recommendations. So the Victorian era is a time of Queen Victoria reigning on the throne of England. Sherlock Holmes stories set in this time period. We're going to see more independence for women, more pursuits of careers for women, more choice for them in terms of marriage and romantic partners. We're going to see some fantastic romances here today, and I'm excited to chat with you about them. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe to my channel, it would mean a lot, and it helps my channel grow and reach more followers like you. So thank you so much for being here. Well, I don't know if you're following, but hopefully you like this video. Hopefully I can find people who want to see more of this content, because that's what I'm going for. So without further ado, let's dive into this story. First one we have is The Siren of Sussex by Mimi Matthews. Mimi writes a lot of great romance stories. This woman, she wants to dress to impress and garner some attention. So she goes to this new tailor in the city who happens to be a gentleman who has moved from India to England. But his father is an Englishman, his mother is Indian. These two characters are from quite different worlds, have different social classes, as well as different experiences of one being English and one being part English and part Indian. So it presents some challenges for him as he's trying to advance himself in his career. And we also see how she gets to learn more about him through these forced proximity times when he's getting, making sure she's fitted, making sure she likes her outfits, because most of the time they didn't just get one outfit, they got several in order to get a new wardrobe. So she is working with him and also wearing his outfits and garnering more attention for his business as it's still kind of getting off the ground. So really entertaining romance. This is a great story. And the second one is Grumpy Sunshine, romance book loving main female character, and then a guy with a mysterious past who has had a history in the war and a bad reputation. So we get to see how that comes into play in book 2. Great stories and great Victorian romances. The next one we have is Lady and the Highwayman. This is the first in a 5-book series. The 5th one is coming out later this year in 2023. The first one, The Lady and the Highwayman, a woman who runs a school for girls. And then we have this gentleman who is completely from the other side of the tracks, grew up on the streets, but when we start to get to know him better, he's actually part of a secret society. This is called the Dread Penny Society. If you're familiar with Victorian times, they would sell these books called Penny Dreadfuls, and you'd get 1 chapter per week. And he and all his buddies in this society are authors of Dread Penny novels. So he writes Penny Dreadfuls. He also has the vernacular of those who lived on the streets. He's got a he uses the slang of the kids who grew up on the streets because that's where he came from. Meanwhile, we have this woman who's wealthy, educated, from a different class. Her speech is much more eloquent, and we see how these two are forced into each other's company. We've got a mystery component, we have a suspense component in the story. It's really entertaining and the start of a great series. Also great social justice themes. The second book, we have a woman who kind of lives a double life. We see how that comes into play. She's very quiet. She works at the school for book 1. Book 3, we have an Irish gentleman living in England. So we see there is a little bit of prejudice because they hear his Irish accent. The woman in this story is Russian. Her father escaped some sort of issues in Russia, wanted to move them to England so he and his daughter would be safer. And he works in the printing business. So we see how that comes into play as he's printing Penny Dreadfuls and other things in the neighborhood, and for the working class people, the challenges that they face as they're trying to just make their livelihood, pay off their bills, and live day-to-day life. And then book 4, which is the newest and most fantastic release so far in this series, is about a gentleman who's a doctor and a woman who is part of a family who digs up bodies for money. Not the most glamorous job, but one that deals with a lot of secrecy, a lot of stealth, a lot of danger. So she has tried to escape that life. This was a marriage of convenience story, and now they're trying to figure out a way to stay safe as more dangers and threats come up. We have this mysterious lurking figure behind a lot of the danger from these books. I recommend reading these in order because you get to see how pieces start to come together. And then by the end of book 4, if you know, you know. It's just everything is sizzling to a boil at this point, and you can't wait to see what book 5 has in store. It's coming out this summer, if I recall correctly, so definitely something you want to read. Great social justice themes throughout the stories, and really entertaining Victorian history, romance. The romance is definitely the predominant thing, don't worry. But really great history and great research that ties into the atmosphere that these characters exist in. So a really great story, definitely one I'd recommend. Now, if you want something completely unique, totally different than anything else on this list, here's the one for you. We have steampunk. If you don't know what steampunk is, it's a unique kind of combination of modern-ish technology with historical settings in the Victorian era, 1800s era. Contraptions that work somewhat like modern contraptions, and we get to see how that comes into play throughout the series. The first one is Beauty and the Clockwork Beast. We are introduced to this world. I always recommend giving this series a couple books to kind of ease into it, because book 2 was really what hooked me. I liked book 1, I thought it was decent, but book 2 really like snagged my attention and had me like completely invested in books 3 and 4 too. Really enjoyed this series, and something definitely unlike anything else. We have fairy tale retellings. The first one's Beauty and the Beast. Second one is Sleeping Beauty. Third is Rapunzel. And the fourth is Cinderella. The first one is forced proximity, forbidden romance. The gentleman in this story has a condition with his heart, so they're trying to figure it out before something goes wrong. In book 2, we have the doctor and the best friend of book 1, and we have a woman who has this condition where she falls asleep for periods at a time. Book 3, the Rapunzel retelling. That's kind of self-explanatory to a degree, but really interesting twist in this story, which is what really like had me like, what in this story. And then book 4 is a sort of bodyguard protective romance, but doesn't start off that way. When she stands up to be an activist, to stand up for these rights and makes public rallies and declarations. And in one case where there's this rally, there's a threat to her life, and he's trying to make sure everyone stays safe. And even though she kind of drives him crazy, he is also responsible for keeping her safe as well as everybody else there. So they end up on this journey together. He's trying to keep her safe. She doesn't really want his protection, thinks she can do just fine without him, but she kind of needs his help. Really entertaining story, great romance, and something unique and unexpected. Last but not least is a series which is not complete. There are 3 books. 3 women live in a boarding home together. They are cousins. Each are pursuing their own independent careers. In the first one, she works at the newspaper magazine agency that her aunt owns and working on building her literacy skills, her writing skills. She ends up in the situation where she's working with this investigator, and the investigator doesn't really want her help, but she wants to step in there and show that she can be competent and is picking up on things that he's not. So these two end up being an unlikely pair who work together and basically are trying to solve this ongoing mystery. As things are continuing to progress, we have this thing from the past that they're trying to investigate and figure out as well. Really great mystery suspense that had me on the edge of my seat. The second book in this series, we have the detective from book 1's partner. He is the leading male character in book 2. And we have the main female character from book 1's cousin. She owns her own photography business. She's getting that off the ground. It seems to be doing pretty well, even though, she's still garnering interest and still gaining some respect as a female photographer. A really entertaining story. We're at this house party. Her photography skills are needed, so she's technically working, but great forced proximity. We had this really funny older woman. This is the main gentleman's mother, who's kind of interfering and niggling and whispering in his ear, like, you need to find somebody. Let's get you married off and making some grandbabies kind of thing. But it's really funny and goofy. It's just nudgy in an entertaining way. So she adds a really fun dynamic into the story. Great humor, great banter, and really entertaining romance. So I'm excited to see when this third one comes out what that last cousin has in store for her romance story as well. So that wraps up this list. I hope you enjoyed. If you've read any of these, let me know. If you got all the way to the end of this video, be sure to leave, and let's do the top hat emoji, because Sherlock Holmes wears his top hat, right? He totally does. And I love the top hat emoji. It's so dignified. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and I'll be sure to chat with you guys some more in my next one. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.